Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Joined today with Hank and Drew. There's a little bit of technical difficulties right now with Drew, so Hank and I are going to hold the fort down. But Hank, who do you have for the big game on Sunday?
I got Seahawks 27, Patriots 17 in a very entertaining Super Bowl.
Okay, I'm going to say that this is going to be a double-digit win for Seattle. I think Seattle will win by at least 2 scores.
Yeah.
But I love the Seattle defense, and that's right now that's kind of where my head is. But we will see. I'm definitely looking forward to a big game.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, the Super Bowl is on my birthday.
Oh,
I was really hoping Buffalo was going to give me the best birthday present ever, but it just didn't work out this year.
Not this year.
Not this year. So, Hank, we're here to discuss cornerback big boards.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get into like specific players, if you had to describe this year's cornerback class, are there any adjectives or statements that come to mind?
I think this cornerback class is just sick. I think it's probably one of the stronger positions in this draft. And I think that there's a lot of talent all around. I think as of right now, and I just started like fully grading corners, I think I have about 18 or 19 like completely graded. I think there's 10 in my top 50. So there I have a lot of love for this cornerback class right now.
Okay, see, and that's interesting because one of the things that I'm noticing is like there's several corners that like some draft professors are going to be like, how can that guy be drafted that high? To other people are like 10 in the top 50.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a wide variety of ideas with this cornerback class. I know some people don't really like it. I just think that there's a lot of upside with it, and I think the biggest hit that it has is there's just not a lot of boundary size. A lot of these guys are going to move inside, move to the slot, the nickel, and it's just since that's going to make guys who are 6'2", 200 pounds get a premium, and they're going to go higher in the draft than a lot of people project, I think.
Okay. And Drew, I know that you haven't finished grading all of your corners. Do you have a summary of the cornerback class based upon the players that you've graded?
Yeah. So first off, hopefully the internet holds up. We'll see on that. That's a big question mark. But Lawrence, Kansas is for some reason bugging right now. But from what I have seen, I heard a little bit of what Hank said, and I totally agree with the parts I heard. It is not recognized by the national media of being a great class. However, at least the top end talent I feel like is definitely there. But all of them have an if. It's you don't have a perfect prospect. You have he's an amazing cornerback if he's an amazing quarterback if he can overcome his height. He's an amazing cornerback if he doesn't get injured. So there's going to be a lot of question marks. But overall, I feel like this is a pretty good cornerback class. I haven't dove into a lot of the depth yet, but I'm really liking with what I see so far.
Okay. So so Hank said he had 10 corners in his top 50.
As of now.
As of now, right? And
as of
board
now.
isn't done. Yeah. Board isn't done.
A lot of linemen I need to get to.
Drew, how concentrated is your, top 50, top 100 with corners as your board exists today?
Honestly, it's going to be a pretty similar number. So I still have to watch a good amount, but I currently have 7 that I'm pretty sure will end up in my top 50. We'll see. The board isn't done, not even close yet. So I think I'll have at least 7 though, with me needing to dive into more.
Okay. And Hank, you said 21 fully graded.
Around 20. I think it's 18 or 19, but there's guys I don't have graded that I have an idea of what they'd be. So
okay. So Hank, how far down your 20 corners do you have to go where you say that player is scheme specific? Like, is it corner 2, corner 10, where you say, if that team plays a lot of press man, he'll be off the board, or if this team plays a lot of zone, that guy's going to be off the board?
I think as of right now, you got to get to about corner 9. I think currently Brandon Cisse is strictly press man coverage. I don't really trust his zone right now, but he's also very young and he has tons of room to grow and he's going to test really well at the combine. So this is a guy who has tons of potential, but as of right now, strictly man coverage, strictly press man, and he matches up really, really well, but the zone coverage is in there right now.
Okay. So Drew, who's corner one for you?
Cornerback one for me. It may not be a popular pick. I tweeted about him on X or Twitter or whatever people call it now, but tweeted about it, and that's Keith Abney, the Arizona State cornerback. 6', 190, so he's not the biggest player. And that's, I think, is a very generous 6 foot. I wouldn't be surprised if he measures in at 5'10. So he's definitely undersized, but really everything else I love about him. He's such a fluid athlete. He's smooth. He's always in control. I mean, he's got one of the best backstories. He's a former 300-meter rollerblader. He was a 4-time national champion. He held like the 300-meter record holder. So he's absolutely outstanding. And that helps with his balance. That helps with his ankles. That helps with his hip fluidity. Sorry. And in coverage, he's very physical. He's an amazing communicator, can pass off coverage as well. It's just effortless for him in coverage. He knows how to play press man. He's very good at that. He can mirror a defender well. It's a lot of very different things that he does. I think he's very versatile. He'll play zone well. He'll play man well. And then he's a very hard hitter with amazing ball skills. He doesn't skimp out on run plays. He will go downhill head hunting. And if the ball is by him, he's making a play on it. Now, I said the size and the strength and all that's a concern. One more I have is he's very handsy in coverage. You love a physical cornerback. You need a physical cornerback. But there's an extent where it gets too much. The Saints had this problem a couple years ago with Paulson Adebo. He was always making plays. He had a ton of interceptions, but it was seemingly either pass interference, interception. One of the two, you didn't know which one. And I think Abney could fall into that trap, but if he can kind of clean up that technique and just show he can counteract the size, which will be a question for a lot of these cornerbacks. But if he can do that, I think he'll be a high first-round pick.
And Hank, who's your cornerback one?
Yeah, I'll just say, Keith Abney, I love him. CB2 for me. I do agree with the grabbiness. I think that his arm length is going to kick him inside to nickel because I just don't think it's there to be able to truly jam a receiver or, stop their momentum or just anything like that off the line. I don't think it's long enough to hang on the outside. And then the athleticism is a big question. But there's an argument that he's the best zone coverage corner in this draft. I think he has the second highest grade for me behind my number one, but absolutely love Keith Abney. And I think he needs more love. My CB1 is probably more of an unpopular pick. I have D'Angelo Pons there. And in my opinion, D'Angelo Pons would be the best corner in this draft if he was 5'10", 185. He just doesn't have the size that NFL teams are going to want. But when you watch the film and you watch the tape, he can just flat out play. He's making plays on guys that are 6'3", 205 on the boundary, and he's playing up to their size. That's the most important part. If D'Angelo Pons was a small corner who played small, then you have a problem. But this is a small corner who plays like he's 6'1", 200 pounds. And I think in terms of coverage, he's the best in the class. He shows good effort and run support. The hips are fluid. I really do like D'Angelo Pons. I think someone's going to take him earliest back end of round 1. I think he shouldn't make it out of round 2, shouldn't make it out of the top 50 because he's just that good. But whoever takes him is getting an absolute dog that we're going to look back in probably 3 to 4 years and be like, why didn't we take a chance on this guy? He was small, but that's it. And, I think a team like Buffalo could really use D'Angelo Pons playing a cornerback for them at the back end of round 1.
So do you see Pons as a slot or a boundary corner?
I like Pons so much that I think you could honestly try him on the boundary until he fails. He does have the run support abilities to play in the slot 100%, but he's been so good on the boundary for Indiana that I don't see any reason to move him. He's the number 4 player on my board. So he's a guy that I really, really love. And I think, just like how Maui Noah is probably going to play right tackle until he fails, or if he fails, I think the same grace should be given to D'Angelo Pons on the boundary. especially because he can play up to wide receiver size.
And Drew, where is Pons for you right now?
I mean, I love what Hank was saying. Pons is my cornerback 3. And my absolutely favorite thing about him is just his mentality. I mean, it's like you've seen a very small point guard or a very small someone in basketball. And if they get switched on to a power forward, to a center, you see some shy away and allow themselves to get bullied by physical contact. If D'Angelo Pons is in that circumstance, absolutely not. He is going to war every single rep. It doesn't matter if the receiver's 6'5" or if he's 5'9". He goes so hard every play, never backs down. And that's just what I absolutely love to see. He'll never have the size. I think he should be an outside cornerback. Then you can always switch him there. It's kind of like the tackle guard debate. Let him fail at outside cornerback. But I mean, I absolutely love D'Angelo Pons. He's just a playmaker. He's always in the right play. He's aggressive. He's got great ball skills. I mean, it's really everything you could want, minus the size.
Okay, so we've covered Drew's corner 1 and corner 3. Drew, who's your corner 2?
Cornerback 2, it's very close. All my top 3 guys are pretty close. But my cornerback 2 is Jermod McCoy, the Tennessee quarterback. For him, the main question is just how does he recover from his ACL? Because he tore his ACL in the offseason, wasn't able to play this past season, and is just starting to get healthy now. So if he does, I mean, the combine is going to be absolutely paramount to him. That is the biggest thing. Highlight it. Fans watch that because his movement skills will be on display. Teams will get a look at his medicals. That is going to be the marquee event at determining his draft stock. But outside of that, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that he's the best coverage cornerback when healthy. His 2024 tape is unreal. Normally, when a player misses the entire year, their stock goes down a lot, or they don't even declare. Not Jermod McCoy. He didn't need it. Zone coverage, man coverage, he can do it all. He's versatile, smooth athlete. He's got amazing press technique and very good foot speed. He's very instinctual. Eyes are always focused on the quarterback. Fluid hips, fluid ankles. It's just masterful to watch him work. He's got great ball skills. So if he can just recover from his ACL, I think he'll be a star in the league. That's just the big question. You saw against Ohio State was the film, one of the films I watched, and I think that was the most telling for me. He allowed a touchdown that game, but outside of that one play, he was stellar. And that Ohio State receiving core, Jeremiah Smith, Amik Egbuka, Carnell Tate, it was very impressive, and he held his own. So I'm very high on Jermod McCoy. I've seen him go in the teens in the draft, and I think that's 100% a great spot for him.
So, Hank, where are you and McCoy right now?
McCoy is my CB4 currently, mainly just due to the injury. I just don't really know what to expect because I'm more worried about him losing a step in his athleticism with the ACL than that he kind of needs in order to keep up in man coverage. But like Drew said, he played Jeremiah Smith just about as well as anyone can play Jeremiah Smith. And that was shown last year on film. I really like his instincts. He's good in run support, great ball skills. It's just, I think off the line of scrimmage, he could use his hands more to kind of misdirect or jam the receiver a bit. It just feels like he wasn't being physical enough. I don't want to say soft because he's not a soft player, but he just needs to be more physical within like the first 5 yards of routes. So I do like Jermod McCoy. It's just what's going to happen with the ACL. I have no idea.
Okay. And then Hank, have we talked about all of your top 4 corners, or is there still a player that's been left out?
No, there's still my CB3.
And who is that?
So as of right now, it's Chris Johnson. I do really like Chris Johnson, 6'1", 190. Had I would say mid Senior Bowl, got exposed on a few reps, looked good in team drills. Everyone remembers when Tyron Montgomery, the John Carroll wide receiver, went up and just mossed him. But, the Senior Bowl isn't one play, thankfully. But I just really think that Chris Johnson he would fit into almost, like, not even almost. I think he'll fit into every NFL scheme, which is why I think will make him go higher. Good man, good zone, good athlete. Everything with him just seems to be above average. And I think he has near, 9 out of 10 man coverage. just everything with Chris Johnson points to being a very decent NFL cornerback, CB2, maybe even a CB1 on a team. And that's really valuable and definitely a guy who can stick on the boundary. Just need to see more reps of him handling physicality. There wasn't a lot of guys trying to push him within the first 5 yards. 6'1", 190 is okay. It's not great, but when a guy like Mike Evans is lining up across from you, how are you going to handle that when you're losing about 5 inches in height and he's going to want to run through you? And then got beat on the inside a lot, which makes sense for man coverage. But one thing that really stood out to me was he had the speed to recover. So I think he's going to be a very good NFL corner.
Okay, and Drew, where's Chris Johnson for you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him than Hank is, but that's just because I'm putting a little bit more stock into his Senior Bowl performance. And I agree with a lot of what Hank said. Really versatile, really good in really any role you put him in. But the Senior Bowl, he just didn't. At San Diego State, he didn't face the toughest competition. His schedule wasn't that hard. He didn't face really any NFL level receivers as of now. I could dive into more. I'm sure there's some great players he played against, but there's no one that you're going to hear their name called this year, most likely. So I'm putting a lot of stock into the Senior Bowl where you did see him go up against some top talent. You did see some smaller school players shine. While he didn't have a bad day, he had a couple of bad reps, but he had some good ones too. But you just really didn't hear his name. And that's kind of what I look for at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I wasn't there, so I didn't get to see every rep. Hank was, so I'm putting a lot of stock into what he's saying. But I just really wish he's shined more, and made his name known against some of the top talent. Because, I mean, Tyrone Montgomery, if you're taking a small school guy who can impress and they can clearly raise their stock, while I think everyone was kind of waiting for Chris Johnson to have that breakout day, to have that breakout couple of snaps, and I just don't think it came. So he'll have another chance at the combine to show people, put some numbers on, and impress a lot. But I was a little bit disappointed by his Senior Bowl performance.
And I will say I was able to talk with him for a few minutes. Great character, good guy. So teams are going to love him when he interviews. I think was like the only guy who had a better character than him was Charles Demings, who's also a corner that we'll probably talk about later. But really, really nice guy to talk to.
And Drew, where do you have Colton Hood? And McKinney was a return to school, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, McKinney transferred to Notre Dame.
Yeah, he went to Notre Dame, so that's a great signing for them. I think he's going to be him and Leonard Moore. Notre Dame's defense it's looking nice. It's looking really good. But Colton Hood is my next guy on my watch list. As I said before, I was putting a lot of stock into the Senior Bowl, and cornerbacks is one of the last positions I got to. So I haven't gotten a ton of eyes on Colton Hood. And that even rung true at the Senior Bowl because he practiced for a day. I'd say he had a pretty good day. It wasn't perfect by any means. He had some bad moments, but overall, I'd say it was very good. And then he got injured. So you didn't really get to see him after the first day. So I'm really interested to see what Hank has to say here. And yeah.
Right. I'm lower on Colton Hood than a lot of people. I know Andy is CB3 for him. I'm CB10 currently, which is still in my top 50. Late round 2 grade. I really worry about his zone coverage mostly. Sick man coverage corner. Really, really nice. But the zone coverage is really worrying me. 5'11", 195 is, again, like okay size. But he has plenty of room to develop. Just like Brandon Cisse, he's a redshirt sophomore. So he has so much time to develop. And he had a great year at Tennessee. And I really like him declaring because it's a ton of momentum for him. But I think that he needs to change his play style a bit. He's going to get penalized a lot more in the NFL if it doesn't. I think that some of his angles and run support are pretty bad, and he needs to get his head around. One of my least favorite things in a corner is a guy who doesn't get his head around, because then you're just drawing unnecessary penalties, especially if you don't really commit pass interference. You're going to get it called on you just because you don't turn your head around. So he needs to get his head around in order for me to like him more. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a very good corner in a man coverage scheme in the NFL that can eventually develop into an all-around versatile corner. This corner class is just sick, and guys that are strong in one form of coverage, most of them have plenty of room to develop into the other one and become more well-rounded. So I do like Colton Hood. I just don't like him as a top 5 corner, top 3 corner in this class.
So when we were doing the scouting reports on corners, we had like Ian Cummings and JT Olson and Durst and Peter Quinn and Clint Goss doing corners. They were all saying something really similar. This does feel like it's a relatively deep CB2 class, right? Like you're not really going to find the Sauce Gardner or Darrell Revis shutdown corner. But if you just need to get a starting corner within the next, year and a half, you're going to be able to find a guy that you like in this draft, probably into round 4 kind of thing. So, Drew, where do you want to take the cornerback discussion next?
There's a couple ways I could take it, but I want to talk about my cornerback 4, and that is Mansour Delane from LSU. He's one guy who transferred into LSU from Virginia Tech this offseason, and it was a really underrated move. I don't think a ton of people were talking about it because there were a lot bigger news, but he's someone who could have declared last year. I think would have been around a 4th-round pick, but he just had an exceptional year, raised his stock, and is a archetype on why people should go back to school now. But Mansour Delane, every cornerback in this class, a lot of the top ones are practically the same height outside of the Angelo Bonds. They're all listed around the 6'1", 190 range. So it's going to be very interesting to see at the combine when all the measurements come in. But for Mansour, I mean, I sound like I'm talking about the same player because they all do very similar things well at the top. Impressive movement skills. They have great mirroring ability in man coverage, elite footwork, elite athleticism, great ball skills. Mansour is also a very high IQ player. He's a great communicator. He just passes off coverages so well, especially in zone, which I really like. And he's got great effort. There are plays where he'll chase down the guy to the complete opposite side. One thing that I think kind of stands out about Delane is his versatility. LSU will play him all over the field. He took snaps on the outside. He took snaps in the slot. He took snaps as a safety. I mean, he's incredibly versatile and can play a number of different positions. Now, some concerns with him. He's a willing tackler, but I don't think he's anything exceptional. He definitely has a couple of missed tackles on film that you'd like to see him wrap up. And then similar to that, in the run game, I just don't think he's got a great downhill trigger. He kind of hesitates to go in before going in and trying to make the play. And finally, he can struggle in tempo against the routes. There are some elite route running receivers who use tempo so well, who can get him off speed and create instant separation that way. So I kind of want to see him improve in those areas, but I still definitely do think he'll be a 1st-round player and is someone who had a meteoric rise throughout the season.
Okay, Hank, you want to talk about Delane or you want to talk about a different corner?
I can touch on Delane because I'm definitely lower on Delane than a lot of people. He's at my CB6 currently, about a mid-round 2 grade. I will say I'm a lot more worried about his zone coverage than I feel like a lot of people. I use a scale of 1 to 10 to grade out each category. He got in 5 is usually just average. He got about like a 5.5 for me. So there's still a lot of mishaps in zone that I really don't want to see from a guy who's supposed to be the CB1 of this class. I will say athleticism scares me and size does scare me, especially his arm length. He does have shorter arms, and I think he's going to be a boundary corner. He doesn't really have the chops to stick inside at the nickel or in the slot. But in terms of just a man coverage corner with great change of direction and great instincts, he is sick. Like, he is ridiculously good. Some team will take him 1st round. He's basically the consensus CB1. So I'm excited to see where he goes, but I have a bit more question marks on him than a lot of people do, but I still really like him as a player.
And then, Hank, do you want to take the question there from Ryan?
Yeah, I didn't really go in depth. Amara McCoy is a guy who was on my list. There were about 4 guys I didn't get to before this, but I do know a bit of where I'd like to see him. The game that I watched a little bit of was Notre Dame because that's the best competition he faced. And I didn't really like what I was seeing so far. I will also say I'm very worried about his athleticism, but at 5'11", 180-ish, he's pretty good in coverage, and there's definitely an NFL role for him. I just don't really see a team valuing him that much with his athleticism, because then you can't really use him in like a clear special teams role as like a gunner or on kickoff, to run down the field as fast as you can. So more than likely for me he's a UDFA, but I think he's a good UDFA. But the size and the athleticism scare me. But the film against especially teams in the Mountain West is pretty decent. So there is something to work with there.
Okay. And what corner do you guys want to go through next?
I would like to talk about Avion Terrell because I feel like that'll be a pretty contentious name because people see a Clemson player right now and they immediately assume he's had a very down year and struggled when that is not the case. And I do really like Avion Terrell. He's my cornerback 4 right now. I think I miscounted that Dylan was. It's Avion. And my favorite thing about him, what makes him stand apart for me is his ability in run support. From what I've watched, he's, I think, the second best run support cornerback I've watched. Keontae Scott. We'll talk about him later. I think he's in a different realm, but he's not the best tackler ever. He's very, very willing, but he has some missed talent. But once he sees the play, he automatically triggers downhill and is flying as fast as he can. He's going into the midst. He's not afraid of a blocker. He will bounce off them. And then outside of that, in the passing game, so I'm going to get to that because run game is everything. Very good, though. I don't think he's the best in press. He's not that physical when he's running in press, so he needs to definitely improve on that. I don't think he'll be that freshman year or rookie year in the NFL. But he's got great quickness, very smooth mover, really good laterally. He's extreme competitor. So like I was kind of saying with Pons, he doesn't back down from anything. He's got excellent speed. I think he can match most receivers. I really like him from an athletic profile outside of his strength. I think in zone, I do think he could improve a little bit. I think his eyes are really good. And I think he's got some good instincts. But I still think he's a little bit more reactive instead of instinctive right now. But overall, I mean, he's still a junior, still young, but I am a big fan of Avion Terrell. I think he will go in the first round. I've seen him drop to the second round. I've done some mock drafts where he has dropped to the second round, but I don't think he will come draft day.
He fell out of the top 50.
I think that was the first one that I did. Yeah, I hadn't watched him.
Friday mock.
Yeah, we had that. He was one of our surprising drops, but after watching him and getting another set of eyes on him, I'm a big fan, and I think he is first-round caliber. It's just tough because teams don't know what they need, and there's some smaller different archetypes where it's just personal preference for everyone. So it could be a very wide spectrum. We could see a cornerback drop because a defensive coordinator likes one style better or something like that. But it's tough to predict, but I think Avion will end up going in the first round.
So, Hank, Avion Terrell, slot corner, boundary corner.
Definitely slot for me because I think that's where his skill set just fits best, especially with his run support. He's currently 36th on my board, which I honestly think could end up being pretty low for him. I think the big 4 at Clemson, Klubnik, Terrell, Woods, and Parker, like I think the tape on them was all pretty decent to good, but they're just catching a lot of slack because Clemson. So I personally think that Avion Terrell is probably going to go back end round 1 just because of especially NFL bloodline with his brother, of course, AJ Terrell and the Hawks and the Falcons. Whoa. But Avion Terrell is definitely a guy that NFL teams are going to like. Great mindset. I could see him going as early as Detroit at pick 17, all the way to the back end of the round where Seattle's picking, and if they want to maybe keep him on the boundary or do something different with Devon Witherspoon next year with their 2 Josh Jobe and Tariq Woolen being free agents. So there's definitely a lot of teams that are going to love Avion Terrell. They're going to love the mentality that he has. So I'm excited to see where he goes in the draft.
Okay. And then Ryan had another player. So Hank, Latrell McCutcheon from Houston.
Haven't watched him.
Okay. And then where do we want to take the corner discussion next?
I wouldn't mind kicking it to a guy that I just watched today. I don't expect Drew to have him watched, but DeCarlos Nicholson out of USC is a guy that I really, really, really liked his film. Earned a round 3 grade for me. Currently sitting at CB11, which sounds low, but judging on how I have 10 in my top 50, it's really not that bad. DeCarlos, though, 6'2", 203, with an 81.5-inch wingspan and 34-inch arms. So he has elite size in a class that doesn't have size. So I really, really like that royalty that he has should get him drafted higher. I think that on film, I was watching the Oregon game. You can tell he has attention to detail on every rep. He's trying to have the correct technique. Now, I will say his footwork is a little bit wonky. He does pick his feet off the ground a little too high for me. And he also does turn 25 pretty early into his rookie campaign. So he's an older player. But I think that especially on some underneath routes, like, quick, like drag routes, he was right there with the receiver. He looks like he's a pest on film, which I like out of a corner. And he turns with his hips, and he doesn't like when he has to, when there's a receiver, there's like two go routes on the right side, if he's covering the guy in the slot or on the inside, he turns his hips instead of planting and turning, which I don't know why I liked it, but when he did it, it just looked smooth. Just a few things they can clean up, though, is that he squared his hips sometimes on some routes trying to cut off the inside. A few times he anticipated an inside release and they just went outside and got separation pretty quickly, but he did have the speed to catch up. And then he needs to have better tackling form to complement his mentality in the run game. So DeCarlos Nicholson is definitely a guy who's not getting a lot of steam right now, but I think will because of his size. And I also think he can just stick on the boundary in the NFL and be a good system cornerback for whoever you need. I think zone coverage wise, instincts wise, and with his size, he's an NFL team can use that.
So what is the likelihood that a 24-year-old corner would even be, I'm going to say would be drafted in the first 4 rounds? NFL teams tend to like younger corners.
I think in this class, pretty high.
Mhm.
There's a lot of old players at every position in this class. So I think this year there's going to be a lot of guys in their 5th, 6th year going a lot higher than usual.
Okay.
So I'm pretty similar thoughts on that. Like, I get an older prospect is definitely something to watch out for, but in my eyes, if you get 10 years out of a player, that is still an amazing draft pick. If you get 10 good years, you nail that pick. And even with a 24-year-old cornerback, you could still get some good years out of him. And in the 4th round, you might not even be looking for 10. You're looking for 1 or 2 good contracts worth. And I think he could 100% be that. So I'm not going to knock it off too much on him if he's 24 years old.
Yeah, if you take a guy who's 24, or let's just say 24 at the beginning of the season, and he plays the 4 years on his rookie deal, then he's 28, and you pay him, you give him a 4-year contract, that's good value, and you have him at 32, that's pretty good service for an NFL team.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy who is not going to go in the top 50, top 100. So I think that's what DeCarlos Nicholson could be for an NFL team.
If you have like a top prospect, if you're a very high first round, like if Mendoza was 25 years old, then maybe, yeah, that's a lot more concerning. But if it's the 4th round, you can afford the risk and it's well worth taking a shot at, which I'm not going to put much stock into.
Yeah. Okay. So you had mentioned Keontae Scott a little while ago, Drew.
I love Keontae Scott.
Is he slot only for you? Is he corner?
Yeah, he'll be in the slot and nickel. That's where he's played at Miami. That's where I think he'll be at the NFL. But he is one of the players I want the Saints to draft the most. Their Saints slot right now is headed to free agency. I don't think they'll resign him. So getting Keontae Scott would be absolutely amazing. And there's just no really cornerback like Keontae Scott. Someone with his impact, you just don't see that much. Statistically, a wild stat. So we had 2 interceptions, each in the playoffs, each returned for touchdowns. He's got 2 forced fumbles and an unprecedented 13 tackles for loss. That is 13 tackles for loss is unheard of for a cornerback. He is just the heart and soul of that Miami defense. Him, Ruben Bain, Akeem Messidor. It's just a dog mentality and a villain mentality. They want to ruin the game, and that's exactly the mentality I want. He's good in pass coverage, very anticipatory. He's always looking for a huge play, which can burn him at times. And I think in zone, he can kind of struggle still. I don't think he's defined yet there, so I want to see improvements there. But overall, I mean, with the run game impact, with his athleticism, with his instinctiveness, I think he's going to be – I've seen him sneak into round 1 for some mock drafts. I don't necessarily think he will be there yet, but I think he's going to be an early round 2 pick.
Hank, similar eval?
No, I'm definitely lower on him than a lot of people. Now this is a guy, again, 25 on draft day, so older, which always gives players like a slight knock. It did with DeCarlos as well. Um, I will say, great in zone coverage, best run support in this class by far. So like that is going to give an NFL team something to play. But what really scared me was his film when it came to press coverage and his hips. I think that he's really stiff. I think he's not fluid enough to really stick in man coverage. But in terms of just a guy who's athletic, can come downhill and run support and make ridiculous plays, and play with good zone coverage, is a very good guy. I just think with the age and my worry about the hips makes him this like I have him very early day 3, very early. I think he's the second highest player I have on day 3. So I do think that he will go higher than that in the draft. I just, especially being a 6th-year player, I wanted to see a bit more fluidity in his game. But like I said, the run support is legit, and it's probably going to be he's going to be one of the better run support players in the NFL from day one. So there is a ton of value in Keontae Scott. I just don't know how well he's going to be able to hang in coverage.
Okay. We haven't gotten to Traydon Stukes or Preston Hodge yet. Drew, have you had a chance to look at both?
I have not yet. As I said, I just started my corner board pretty recently. It was that and safeties were the 2 positions I had yet to get to.
I think we're doing
decided to wait on them,
safeties
so.
next week, so that's good time.
Yep. So yeah, those are going to be the positions I get into next, but I've not had a chance. I've heard a lot of hype from Stukes. I think on the last mock draft I did, he was drafted extremely high. So I'm interested to see what Hank has to say.
Yeah, so Hank, Stukes and Hodge, are you day 2 or day 3, and which player do you have higher?
So Stukes is a safety for me. So I was going to talk about him next week. So I will save that. And then Hodge is a late day 3, decent, okay, kind of okay corner. So I'm not really high on Hodge, and I think Stukes is a safety in the NFL.
Okay. And so I'm going through, I could probably just pull up the list to see, but Hank, another corner that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll just talk about Charles Demings really quick from Stephen F. Austin. Genuinely, the first thing that I want to talk about with him is his character. I had about 4 separate conversations with him at the Senior Bowl, and all 4 of them were like crazy nice, crazy. He's just a good guy. We talked about different things from like what he said in the team huddle to like does he run his social medias. Like it was just everything all across the board with him. 6'1", 190. Is an older player, right? At corner. So I do think he's a day 3 pick, but I think he's a day 3 like value pick. I think he's definitely a sleeper. I wish that he got his hands on receivers a bit faster, and I do think that his run support is a bit lackluster. But in terms of a guy who's above average, not good, but I'd say above average at man and zone, good chance of direction, good instincts, and fluid hips, that's Charles Demings. I think this is a guy who would eventually be a very consistent CB3 for an NFL team, and the character to go along with it could see him get drafted a lot higher.
Okay. We haven't mentioned Will Lee III or Julian Neal yet. So Drew, have you watched either of those players?
Before then, I want to actually talk about one more player that I had in mind, because we mentioned him a little bit at the start, Hank did, but we never really dove deep into him, and that's South Carolina quarterback Brandon Cisse. So first off, it's a tragedy that South Carolina wasn't good. From a talent standpoint, like they have so many impactful players that it just shows what a mediocre offensive line can do to a team. Next year they'll be back though. I believe in Lenoris, but Brandon Cisse, 6 foot 190, and the main concern is that he is still a very raw cornerback. He's got all of the tools to be exceptional, but he still needs a lot of work on his technique, which is kind of concerning and is why I have him graded a little bit lower than the previous ones that we've mentioned. But versatile, similar to Mansour, South Carolina will play him all over the field. Against Alabama, he took meaningful snaps in 3 different positions, on the outside, in the slot, and as a free safety. So he's very good that way. In the run game, he's very impactful. He has some missed tackles on film that you'd like to see improved, But I did really enjoy his mentality while going at it. He's not afraid of any blocks. He will go head first, trying to get out of them. He's extremely physical in coverage. I don't think it's like Abney where he's extremely physical and it borderlines too physical. I think it's the perfect level. He's got outstanding recovery speed, great lateral agility. I really liked a lot of the potential I saw in press. Now his technique is still completely off in it. He lunges forward at the receiver instead of letting them come to him, which can cause, if the receiver's got a good release package, one step and he's burnt. But so he needs to work on that. But I just love the potential that I see with Cisse. Still needs to improve, but the flashes are there. The potential is there. The tools are all there to be a franchise cornerstone.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with the potential. Again, for me, it's really just the zone coverage and a bit of a question on his size, but everything else is just really solid. And that man coverage, when it flashes, it flashes. Like he will shut someone down rep after rep, and then he'll drop into zone. And I think he's just a bit too jumpy in zone. He's looking to make a play. He's looking to lurk the quarterback. He's looking to bait the quarterback into making a throw. Just stay in your assigned spot. And if it doesn't come your way, it doesn't come your way. That's honestly better if the quarterback doesn't look at you. I get you want to make this highlight play, the interception, the pick six. You don't need that every play. Sometimes you just got to do your job. And if the ball comes to you, the ball comes to you. So Brandon Cisse is definitely a guy that I want to watch again just to see if I can bump him up a bit higher. But in terms of potential, he has tons of it. There just needs to be a lot of improvement.
The Texas A&M game, I think, was perfect for that. First, I mean, South Carolina, Texas A&M, if you don't know for some reason, they were up like 31-3 or 31-0 at halftime. So South Carolina had a huge lead. And in that first half, he was locked down. I loved Cisse's film in that first half, and I was really high on him. And in the second half, Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver started to absolutely fry him. And he had some very concerning moments and flashes on the screen. So it's really going to be, can he string together more good plays than bad plays to start his career? Rookie year, I don't think he's going to be in rookie of the year conversations or anything like that. He's going to have his troubles at the start of his career. But if you get him with a good defensive backs coach who takes the time to develop him, you've got someone who has untapped potential.
Someone will. My take on Cisse, someone will take him round one because he's going to test out of this world at the combine. I really like Seattle for him, like pairing up with Eamon Mori, which would just be a good storyline. But I really like how he would be able to develop in that defense, which is already really good under Mike McDonald. That I would really like for him to end up in Seattle. But honestly, I think he goes before that because when he goes out there and runs possibly a 4.2, high 4.2, that there's not going to be a lot of NFL teams that want to pass on that, especially with his potential.
I would love to see him pair up with Eamon Mori. I mean, just get the South Carolina guys together. It's going to be a good defense.
They'll do better for Seattle than they ever did for South Carolina.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So I had mentioned Julian Neal. That was not a player either of you mentioned, and Will Lee. And the reason that I bring those two players up specifically, there were a lot of other draft professors that were really high on both of them. And it doesn't appear that either of them cracked your top 10.
No, I haven't really done like a deep dive on Julian Neal, but Will Lee is just too grabby. And I think that I just don't think he has the stop-start ability to be this day two pick. He's definitely want to go day one, but he is a good man coverage corner. He has better zone coverage than I think he has credit for. I also just don't like the run support that he brings, and I just feel like everything else about his game is like more in that 6 out of 10 range, where it's just like it's above average. I don't think that he's anything special, but I do think that some team will get him. He'll be a nice CB3, CB4 in the league.
Okay.
Will Lee was someone I watched very, very early, and I haven't circled back to. So when we were doing the team covering a matchup very early in the year, I had a Texas A&M, and I watched Will Lee, and I really enjoyed a lot of what I saw. But I'd agree with Hank. I'd say he's above average at a lot of things, but I don't know how many things he excels at. I mean, he's one guy I'm going to revisit in the next couple days, but I do like a lot of the flashes from my memory. I transitioned to a new scouting thing, so I don't have him noted in my notes, or I don't have him ranked, but I do like a lot of what I saw from Willie.
Okay. So another player you guys haven't mentioned yet is Devin Moore from Florida. How do you weigh the injury history versus the tape grade, and like where did he land for you, Drew?
He's one because of the injuries that I really haven't gotten eyes on yet. I've been focusing on a
Okay.
lot of the top ones to prepare. But my thoughts on quarterback injuries is I put less pressure on it until I physically hear at the combine that they aren't going to play. Like Jermon McCoy, he could drop a little bit right now. If at the combine, he's still not fully ready because that's like full year he's been out and it's still not good. So I'm not going to put. Obviously, it's persistent, so it's going to drop a little bit. The durability score is going to drop a little bit, but I mean, if I don't see it when he's playing on the film, I'm not going to label a player as directly injury prone. I didn't with Jordan Tyson, didn't with Jermon McCoy. So I'll trust them. But if I hear something at the combine, it'll drop a lot.
Hank, how about you for Devin Moore?
Yeah, the medicals have to check out, but I honestly think that the injuries get canceled out with his size. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, I think that this is a class that really lacks boundary size, and him being 6'3", almost 200 pounds, is really a royalty in a class like this. He's actually currently my CP5, so I do really like Devin Moore. I think press coverage and hip transitions and his athleticism just give him tons of room to work with. The injury history is very scary, but in a class that lacks size, he's going to go a lot higher as long as those medicals come back clean, which I think that they will. So I'm very confident Devin Moore being a day 2 pick. I would almost say top 50, but I would definitely be shocked if he made it past like pick 75 in the draft.
Okay. Any other corners, Hank, that you think will go day 2 that we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, there is one that I have a day 2 grade, and there's like 2 that I think could sneak in. The one that I have a day 2 grade on is TJ Hall out of Iowa. I really liked his tape when I saw it. Great man coverage, good zone coverage. The top speed is a bit of a question mark, and I don't think his instincts are the best. He also did have a mediocre Senior Bowl, but again, I'm not going to put too much weight into that yet. Great run support though, and good press coverage. But I think they lost the line of scrimmage too often. Very handsy, and I think that the release packages, when he faces a good release package, it gets a little bit dicey. But his stickiness in coverage, his ability to jam, when he's able to jam someone at the line, they really get jammed. They really get moved out of their way. The man coverage is very, very good. Doesn't miss tackles really, and he's very, very smart in zone coverage. He's like what I want out of Brandon Cisse. He understands his assignment. He sits there. He just takes up the space they're supposed to take up. And then the guys I think could sneak in are actually my 2 guys at Washington. So Ephesians Prysock and Sicario Davis are both barely day 3 guys for me. Ephesians Prysock, my favorite thing with him is just telling you that he could play like Pat Surtain one game and then play like Eli Apple the next. There really isn't any in between with him. It's one or the other. But at 6'2", 193, he is definitely an NFL team will like him. Good zone coverage, all right man coverage, but change of direction is there. Good run support, good hips, and he had to play in a bigger role than he thought with Sicario Davis's injuries this year. I mean, he held it down about as well as he could against Ohio State, going up against Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate. So there's a lot to like in that Ohio State film, but there are just some games where he just looks like a completely different player for all the wrong reasons. And I've watched a majority of his career ever since he transferred from Arizona with Jedd Fisch. So there's a lot that I like about Ephesians Prysock. And if he can just be consistent, he's going to be a very good corner in the NFL. And then for Sicario Davis, again, both of these Washington corners have size. So they're going to get drafted higher than I think people think because, again, this class lacks size. The injuries this year was very worrisome, but he's going to be an RAS demon when, the Colts definitely would love a guy like this. But, I mean, he's 6'3", 197, good length, and very, very above, like very, very good athleticism. I do think that the press is very, very good, and the man coverage is decent. But I think that ever since 2023, the 2024 and 2025 season has just been underwhelming. So I think there's a lot to look at. And yeah, I thought Davis was going to come out last year or the year before. He should have came out 2 years ago. When I think he was eligible 2 years ago, but then he had a very, very disappointing season in 2024, and he just couldn't come out after that. So I think the block shedding could also be better. That's not just me being picky. Corners and block shedding isn't really something that you have to overly worry about. It's like a slot receiver and run blocking. Like you're just at that point, it's just being a bit picky, but it does matter. And then the one thing that actually does worry me is that he's only been able to succeed under Jed Fish. So I'm wondering if he is just very scheme specific when it comes to playing in the NFL, and what NFL team is going to run a scheme like Jed Fish wants to run or that Ryan Walters wants to run. Not a lot. So I want to see him be adaptable in the NFL. It's a big thing.
Yeah. So, Drew, what is your ideal size for a boundary cornerback?
For a boundary corner, I mean, it's obviously going to depend a lot on the scheme you're in. Certain teams will want a lot bigger. They'll want a lot more press cornerbacks. For me, I want, in an ideal world, I'd say about 6'1", maybe 6'2" is about the ideal size. I mean, you saw Darian Porter last year. I believe he was listed as 6'4", and that's on the verge where you're getting a little bit too tall, where it's tough to stick with those fast, shifty cornerbacks. So you don't want it too tall. But I think that 6 foot to about 6'2" range is kind of the sweet spot, anywhere from 195 to about 210, 215, 220, I think is right where you're looking. I think it was Siobhan Revel. He was one of my favorite players in the draft last year. I think I had him 13th on my big board. I absolutely love Siobhan Revel. And a lot of that was because of the size. I mean, he had superb size. I'd have to look at the measurements, but I believe it was about 6'3", 180 pounds, 6'2", 180 pounds, or not 180, 190, 200. So I think that's the perfect size. And if you're around there, you're looking good.
Mm-hmm.
And Hank, how about you? What is your ideal size?
Yeah, I'd be looking 6'1" to 6'3", 195 to 205 would probably be my ideal. And you gotta have good arm length to be able to play at the line of scrimmage. But that's definitely where I'd be looking at for a boundary corner.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out arm length. So,
Yeah.
where was I? I think I was at the scouting combine last year. And well, I know I was at the scouting combine and I had to think that this is where it happened. So there's a gentleman by the name of Bill Carroll. Actually, I think he came on this Monday podcast.
Yep. A couple weeks ago, a podcast with him.
Yep. So Bill is not tall, right? So I'm 6 feet tall. Bill's probably an inch or two shorter than me. But he was standing next to a gentleman, and I'm just going to say this gentleman was 260 pounds, maybe 300. But Bill said, okay, put your arms out. Bill's wingspan matched him, right? And Bill's college position was corner. He says, this is why I could play corner when I was so short, because I had really long arms.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why I could not play cornerback past my 6th grade year. Very short arms, very limited.
Yeah, I mean, wingspan definitely super important. I was definitely more of a basketball guy playing sports wise, but I'm about 6 foot to 6'1", and my wingspan is about 6'8". So I have very, very, very long limbs, and I know it's very important to get hands on a guy before they can get hands on you, and you want to be able to redirect wide receivers as often as possible. So as where I could have shined at corner, I used on the basketball court. So that is where I did that.
I got very unlucky with the size. I'm like 5'9" with very small arms. So very
There
limited.
you go.
I'm a full runner in high school, but yeah, it was rough.
Okay. Well, this is pretty good. And then Drew, I think I just realized that you're doing corners again on Saturday.
I am. So the cornerback board, everyone we mentioned, I'm going to have watched by Saturday, or at least I plan to. So I'll have a lot more notes by then. And yeah, so we'll be good for that.
Yeah. So, and Saturday when we cover corners, Tyler will be there. And then there's a guest coming on as well. So we'll get some fresh corner takes as well as hearing a little bit more about Drew's updated watches.
Yep.
Hank, do you want to let everybody know where you are in social media?
Yeah, just Hank Knows Ball on Twitter and Substack. I always say the Substack's going to get ramped up. It's yet to get ramped up, but I'm hoping it will get ramped up here soon. We will see. College is very busy, and so is work. So we will see what all happens. But Twitter is definitely very active, and been looking to find some gems in the later rounds recently.
Yeah. Drew.
Yeah. Follow me on X or Twitter, or what people call it. I don't even know how to refer to it anymore.
X
But
Twitter.
at X, yeah, sounds good. At Jerome Collings, I'll be posting scouting reports. I'll have a cut up, a brief cut up of D'Angelo Pons going up tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. I'm a writer for the New Orleans Saints at whodatdish.com, as well as I write for the NFL Draft at Roundtable Sports for the Saints, Chargers, Vikings, 49ers, and Texans. I have a Saints podcast called The Dome Discussions, and I'm on here every Monday night and Saturday mornings.
Yeah. So I am thrilled to have both of you engaged on the channel. We're doing this every Monday. I believe next week is linebackers and safeties.
Mhm.
Something like that.
That's what I have written down. But if you guys tell me to cover something different, I'm going to do what you guys tell me. So
Sounds good to me.
I want to remind everybody watching that we do 32-person mock drafts Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you would like to participate, please go to the Draft Professor Twitter page at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. And the pinned post is where I track the signups for that mock. So give it, come join us. Those are usually our best podcasts of the week. You will learn a lot about where other people value players. You'll be able to, I'm always trying to figure out which teams are drafting safeties and which teams are drafting linebackers, because those are two positions that Buffalo needs to draft. Kind of thing. So I scout to see what teams are drafting which positions specifically. So you learn a lot. You'll be able to engage with a lot of the Draft Professor followers as well as the draft professors. So,
I'll be on this week. I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, that's right. So this week it's Drew and Chris Connor will be doing the podcast. So go ahead and check that out on Friday. And then in addition to that, I want to announce that the Draft Professors are doing Epic Mock 26, April 9th, 10th, and 11th. Epic Mock 26 is a 7-round mock spread over 3 days. 32 people will be picking for 32 teams. There will be 32 War Room podcasts spread out over the internet. So, Drew can have a podcast to talk about the Saints perspective. There will be a Buffalo Bills podcast. There's a Giants podcast. So there's going to be podcasts all over the internet. So if you don't want to listen to me, you just can watch one of the other podcasts. So fine with us. So from that standpoint, I just want to let everybody know, if you want to sign up for Epic Mock, the best thing you can do is to be active in the chat on podcasts, right? So that is it's not, how do I want to say it? It's not first come, first serve. It's, do the Draft Professors know who you are? We want to know you. We don't just want you to sign up and do it. We want to know you, right? And like Ryan, it's awesome to see you. You're here every week, 3 or 4 times. JPC, thanks for stopping by. And with that being said, for Hank, for Drew, for myself, for the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.